Hey guys, welcome back. So, I've been working for the last few hours getting stuff, metal cleaned up, and I figured I'd show you where we're at. So all these plates have been ground back, but now the areas where they're going to be welded have also been ground back. And I've done all 8 of them. They're all good to go. And I'll show you how we did this. So this is kind of nice. It looks kind of weird, but like these are very clean where it's going to weld, and that's just, that's important. So let me show you how we did this. We had like a multi-step process. Actually, let me show you something else real important. So what actually made this possible was having our compressor finished. We have this, we built this up. I ought to post a video on this. I did so much work to get this going. But this is like an industrial air compressor. So we got a 5 horsepower motor. It's like 240 volt, 22 amps. And it drives this compressor. And I mean, look how big this thing is. Like, here's my hand for reference. I mean, this thing is massive. So the pistons, it's like a what is it called? A 2-stage compressor. This is like a 5.5 inch piston, or 5 5/8. It's ridiculous. Anyway, it's got an 80 gallon tank, and I actually measured the CFM just doing like a calculation, and it flows about 19 CFM at full pressure. So, I mean, that's really good. That's a lot of flow. And we've been using it, and man, it's so much better. So we just got a regulator stuck on there, and then an air hose. And here's the great thing. So in the past, I've had to use like grinders and stuff like that. Excuse me, hiccups. Anyway, I have this little air tool, but the problem was, you run this thing for like maybe 30 seconds and you're out of air and you got to wait for a few minutes, because I had a much smaller air compressor. I thought about it and I was like, wait, I got a real air compressor. Maybe I can finally use it. So I was able to use these. I wore that one out, but basically it's like a flap wheel, but it fits an air tool, and you can spin this thing up real fast. And I've used these in drills in the past because this thing just didn't have the power, it didn't have the air supply, so I'd use these in a drill, and they work, but they're slow because drills don't spin very fast. So like, yeah, this thing, 22,000. My drill, the fastest one I got, is 4,500. So they're way faster. I broke out these tools, but I never used them. So basically, we just took these things, and then I obviously put that in there, and then what was the other one? We had one more. Yeah, I don't remember. I guess mostly use this, but we mostly use the air tool. Oh, that's right. We use my finger sander. Yeah, it's over here. I bought this little guy. Greatest thing ever. It's like a tiny little belt sander that you can just wield around, and it's so compact. Like, they call it a finger sander. I mean, look how small it is. So you can get this in so many places and sand stuff. That's pretty awesome. It's not that slow either. It's actually kind of powerful, more than you'd think. So she does good. But yeah, we basically went through there in stages and ground all this back. And one thing we did, I got this vacuum I finally brought up here. This might seem boring, but it's kind of important. So I kept this vacuum hose pretty close to, it's just laid on the floor, but I kept it wherever I was grinding or sanding to try to suck all the dust up, or at least some of it. And it's bound to help. Helps keep the shop clean. You're not breathing as much of that. Granted, I had a respirator on, but still, whatever you can do to help can only help. So, plus there's less of a mess to clean up. So anyway, we got all these ground back. I guess probably fix and take some measurements, because I think one of the next steps is to actually start bending up the main hoop. So, oh, I know what we'll do next. But we're not going to do that. We're going to hook this up. We're going to try it out. We haven't actually hooked the air hose to this and run it. We're going to try that next and see what happens. Well, check this out. So it's not quite a roll cage yet. It's just a sheet of paper. But we did a whole bunch of math, or some measurements, a bunch of crap, trying to figure out about how we should do this. And we made a template just out of paper, but it's to scale, obviously. And we stuck it in here to see how it fits. It's not finished. In this area, it would continue and come down, but my paper ran out of length. But I did do this part. This is kind of what I wanted to get a good idea of. So you can see right here, the top of the tube is real close to touching. Granted, it's just barely taped up there. It ain't perfect, but what I wanted to see is how much am I leaving on the table right here. And I don't have a tape measure. That's about 1.5 inches probably, that's getting left, where, you know, that's what we're giving up. But overall, this isn't bad. Not as bad as I thought. I'll show you guys briefly. What I was going to do is have it come out more like this and then turn, but I ran into a problem. I'll try to show you real quick. Let's see. Let me go to the computer. Okay. So this is like a quick little sketch showing what we're thinking about doing. And so here's that top bend, and we have the straight section. And then of course there's this bend. So this straight section, if I click this, that's 4.7 inches, no big deal. Well, there's a minimum for our bender. It can only be so short between bends that are coplanar. And according to the website, that number is 3 inches. So originally when I had done this, I used different angles. And I ended up with like a really, really short section here that I can't actually fabricate. Or at least not without like breaking the rules, and seeing how I've never done this before, I don't want to kind of set myself up for failure or have to make like 4 roll hoops before I get it right and deal with that frustration and all that. It's just not worth it. So I played with the design and I came up with this, and I was like, okay, well this one gives me a longer section here to where I should be able to fabricate it. And then the question became, is this going to be acceptable? So one thing we're still looking at, this distance from this point to this point is roughly 30 inches. So in the car, the supports that go back towards the rear of the car, they're probably going to have to tie in like on this bend instead of on this straight, which I'm not a huge fan of, but it's just probably gonna, I couldn't get the top wide enough across here. If I, this needs to, anyway, it's kind of hard to explain, but it was just kind of being difficult. So this is about as wide as we could probably get it. Maybe we could get a little more, but this is where we're at right now. So that's kind of the point of the template. We wanted to see how it actually looks. You know, maybe we could go a little wider here, but I think there was a reason we had to turn this in. It just, I think when you do that, it runs into something over here. I'll have to look. But anyway, yeah, a whole bunch of math. We got some, let me show you. These are like paper drawings. Here's another one. We're just kind of like taking measurements, trying to figure out. It's kind of a pain because it's all in 3 dimensions. Yeah, you can see here the original angles, 39 and 51. Now it's 20 and 70. So anyway, I kind of like it more stood up vertical anyway. It makes it wider. So like if you look at, yeah, it just makes that top piece wider, which I prefer for safety. It's more of an envelope. So anyway, looking good. We're gonna keep messing around, try to figure out the exact dimensions we're gonna use, because we gotta bend it, but this thing's gonna have 6 bends in it. So these 3 dots here, this is the center of a bend, but this is actually a 23.4 degree bend that basically goes from like the wall being angled and it turns and goes vertical. That's what that bend represents. And then these are all on the same plane, the top 4 obviously. So still thinking about how we're going to build this. One option would be to just leave some extra length here and go ahead and do these 4 bends, and then lastly clamp it up and do this bend and then clamp over there and do that bend. Maybe we'll do that, or you can just start from one end and work your way all the way. Seems a little, I don't know if there's really a difference or not, but something we'll have to pick something and go with it. But what's cool is by doing this in CAD, or halfway doing it in CAD, this isn't perfect, it's close. But the cool thing about this is I can pretty much mostly know, like all this stuff on the same plane, I know that's gonna be right. This stuff, I did fudge it a little bit, but it's pretty close. And the cool thing is, I know, like if you look at this radius here, there's that bend, there's another one right here. So you can see those 2 in blue, but I need to know what the straight section is too. So my bender, I have to clamp a certain distance. So this allows me to know where I need to clamp to do bending, which is pretty useful. So that's gonna help me when it comes to manufacturing. I'll know, hey, you know, go 27 inches, put a clamp, whatever. So at least in theory. Anyway, bring y'all back when we get some more progress. Okay, so we're about to attempt our first, this will be our first attempt at a roll hoop. Quickly show you, this is what we're trying to build. And this is like a one-dimensional kind of representation of a straight pipe. So we're going to start here, and you can see there's a mark at 14.15 inches. That's where our clamp goes, and we're going to grab and bend 23.4 degrees in the bender, and then you'll note there's a tube rotation as well. So we'll do that first bend, then when we go to our second bend here at 24.58, we're going to put a 20 degree bend, but we're going to rotate the tube 90 degrees. So we're going to have to keep up with that. And you can see that basically these 4 bends are all on the same plane, and then the first one and the last one are on a different one. So we'll see. The only major concern I'm seeing, so this bender has a 6-inch distance from the clamp to where the bend starts. So I tried to draw that. And here's what you notice. Here's the first one. So you clamp here and you bend here. Then we clamp here and we bend here. But you note the next clamp point is inside of that bend, because that's just how it works out. It's kind of confusing. According to the paperwork, you can do that with this bender, but you just have to clamp on the bend, I guess. So I hope that works. If it doesn't, I don't know. I hope it works. And then we do that bend, and then we come here. We do this big one, and then same thing. We got to clamp right on the end of that bend to get the next one. And then we clamp here and do our last bend, and then that's it. Now the ends, I left an extra 2.5 inches on either end. And then if this even goes well, hopefully it does. So if that goes well, we'll try to put it in the car, and basically those legs, they're going to land on this pad, probably somewhere around here, and they're going to have to be at an angle. That wall, this shelf back here is at a 23.4 degree angle, and it's just landing against a flat plate, so we'll have to cut or grind that angle, and we'll have to shorten it up too. But I left it a little long just in case we can't add anything legally, so it's better to make it too long and then cut it to fit. So we'll do that. I don't know how I feel about this. I think I did all I think the math is right. I did all these numbers. Actually, it's still in here. I made this paper one that's actually the dimensions, and you can see that's how the fitment is. So it's going to curve right there, and it looks like you might be looking at that going, oh, you could have come out a little more, which you could have. The problem you run into is this. You're going to run into that, and what you don't see in this picture, if I get the camera kind of square, let's see, something about like this. This turns and goes right by that. It's going to be like bumping that real close, and then it'll go straight down and hit that pad. So that's the reason for that. And if I try to make that bend go further before it turns, this gets even shorter, and that was a problem, I think. I guess I'll go back and review one more time, make sure that that's still a true statement, but I think it is. And you can notice the angle of this is pretty close to the angle of that. I thought that seemed to work out. Like if you look at the top, just generally has an angle here. It's a curve, but it's close to an angle. That number matches it pretty close. If that makes sense. So anyway, that's what we got. That's our layout. I kind of think this is going to work. I think this is the only sketchy part, is when we try to grab here to bend there. I got a feeling that's going to throw a wrench into things. There's going to be a little bit of what I think will happen is you'll put your clamp on here, and basically you'll have to take the hydraulics. Like I said, I haven't done this. I'm just intuition, I guess. I'm basically going to grab this and hand pump it and try to feel when it really feels like it's in a bind, like I've taken all the slack up. So like right now this roller moves freely. Obviously there's no tubes on this. It all moves free as can be. But when you get this in a bind, it all gets real hard to turn. So basically, we'll have to do that. And when it finally feels like it's in a real good bind, like if you go anymore, it's going to start bending, then we'll take this and zero it, or move this to some location that we think is zero, or whatever it's on, be like, hey, that's our zero. Calculate it, write it down, whatever. I think we'll have to do that. I think that's going to be a requirement. But I don't know. Hope this works. I do have 2 clamp blocks. It makes sense that clamping these on a round instead of a flat is probably going to mess these up. Luckily I got 2 of them, so I'll probably use, this one's brand new, so I guess I'll keep that for flat tube. And then I've got a used block. I'll just maybe label it. This will be the one for clamping on round parts. And I probably should order a couple more of these, but I at least got 2 for now. So yeah, we're going to throw this in there and bend our first main hoop. The good news is, LOL, so I think I purchased 140 feet of this tubing. So you can see up here on this very top rack, these are sticks. So they're 24 feet long, and I think I bought 7 sticks. So basically 140 feet or something like that. So we can mess this up several times. I don't want to, but we can. We don't have to get it right the first time, although we're going to try. But it is a little slow. I ended up cleaning this. I just sanded it with sandpaper, but that took like 20 minutes or however long. It took long enough between sanding it and cleaning up the mess it made to get all the rust and oxidation off. They say it bends better and clamps better to have it clean. I didn't read the directions before I did the first bend because I don't see it. But anyway, the first bend's all dirty and rusty. But we cleaned this up, so hopefully it's good because I don't want to do all that work and then have to scrap it. But yeah, we're going to throw this in the machine, see what happens.